I know I haven't recorded a normal review in a very long time, but if anything's going to pull me out of that self-imposed exile, then surely it will be an adaptation of one of my favourite books in the whole wide world, directed by not my favourite film director, but somebody that should fit the style of the book like a soiled bandage and is capable of great things. Frankenstein, but not the book, the film, directed by Guillermo del Toro, now available on Netflix. And there it is, the stigma of a streaming service that I find very hard to ignore, even though I stopped going to the cinema a few years ago due to too many people in attendance that can't survive 10 minutes without checking their phone and illuminating the place like a portable lighthouse. I'm sorry if I sound old and grumpy, but my point is I now watch everything from the comfort of my own home, from this very lounge actually, and I love the experience. I think I'm still stuck in that transition period where I expect the cream of mainstream cinema to be a global theatrical event that comes to home viewing later on. I'm also surprised that Guillermo del Toro made this film the project that he said was the most important of his entire career, something that he's been dreaming about for decades, through the same platform that is responsible for so much generic streaming slop. However, Frankenstein did have a proper budget, and apparently he was allowed to make whatever film he chose without corporate interference. So regardless of what I actually think about the film, I am now softening to the notion that streaming services are just a source of an inferior product. Get on with it! To the actual film. I thought the opening 10 minutes was fantastic. It looked amazing, and it's always good to come out swinging. Start with a ship stuck in the ice with explosions and shooting a monster. I don't think those bullets are going to kill him, and then he's throwing people around and snapping bones. Of course, if you know the novel and you assume that this will follow the narrative relatively faithfully, you know that this is the end of the book and now we have to go back. I really like this structure. This is where we are now, but let's find out how we get here. In the moment, as I'm watching the film, I like the idea of showing Victor Frankenstein as a child. We're obviously building the character and showing the audience why he is the way he is, what motivates and drives him, and possibly why he's a flawed protagonist. And we do get glimpses of some classic Del Toro, not as glorious as that opening 10 minutes, but still weird bone-coloured porcelain coffins instead of a normal wooden box, the freaky costumes, the attention to detail that lifts his work above the norm. But by the time we get to the end of the film, which I thought was at least half an hour too long, I feel like we could have done away with all this formative stuff to improve the pacing. Show us Oscar Isaac and the final creature, if you like, and then go back and show us how Victor created that monster. I get that he's driven by the relationship with his parents, but that motivation, that baggage, I don't think it connected enough with the adult Victor Frankenstein. It could have been alluded to rather than given, 20 minutes of screen time. Is the urge to cast Charles Dance in everything the real monster? Greetings from the future. These videos take a lot of time and effort and a little bit of money to make. Money which we don't have. You can watch all of our videos for free on YouTube, or if you would like to support the channel, you can use Buy Me a Coffee, which is an online tipping service. Get yourself a t-shirt or a mug or some socks at the merch store. But best of all, we have a Patreon. You'll gain access to our exclusive Discord, home of the world's greatest read-alongs, the podcast Radio Death Cult, and of course, you can tell your friends and family that you've joined a death cult. Links in the description and on our YouTube homepage. Thank you so much. The performances, the actors. I think Oscar Isaac was a very competent Victor Frankenstein. I like him in everything that I've seen him in. But there was a bit of a lack of the gothic melodramatic, which I think is Del Toro's direction. I think it's his decision to make this film a rather ordinary affair rather than going for the uber theatrical. Christoph Waltz, whatever. Again, I really like him. He's functional. But why is he even in this film? What does he bring to the story? Wouldn't it be better if Victor Frankenstein was a lonely, tortured soul, robbing graves for body parts instead of getting dead soldiers delivered straight to the lab? Yeah, I think it would have been much darker and more interesting. We could have spent so much more time in Victor's face and figured out what makes him tick, rather than being told with all that stuff through his parents. Believing that the old adage, show don't tell, is always the best way to convey a story is the real monster. Mia Goth. Oh god, this one really hurts. Mia Goth, I think, is one of the greatest talents currently working in film. However, she's so peculiar that there's always a risk that she just won't fit the film. A little bit like Nicolas Cage or Derek Jacobi. I always pick on Derek Jacobi. They're obviously great at what they do, but sometimes they feel like they're acting in a completely different picture. She's absolutely perfect in something like Infinity Pool because of the weird, dreamy atmosphere and the weird characters. She's amazing in X because of the pastiche nature and the, I guess, indirect characterization. And she should have won all of the awards in the world for that performance in Pearl. But here in Frankenstein, not necessarily her fault, but please make up your mind who this character is. Is she falling for Victor because she admires his passion, his approach to science, his dark side? Because that's definitely there when they start to entangle. Is she there to complicate Victor's motivations, or is she there to give enormous thematic weight like her version of the character does in here? But wait, now she's the heart of the story, the only other name that the creature can utter. Elizabeth. It's just a bit strange and inconsistent that all of the other characters are simplified while she is all over the place and convoluted. And I felt very little emotion when she meets her maker. But what of the creature, the reason we're all here, right? He looked really good when he was an almost naked dude with big slices on his head, when he had long sexy hair in the middle of the film, and especially when he was the nemesis on the ice. I like Jacob Elordi's performance when the creature has something to sink its teeth into, when he was eloquent, when he was emotional, not so much when he was a bit stupid. I think that's down to quite bad direction again. I was having flashbacks of explaining to Brendan Fraser how to microwave a burrito. Me, Victor. Me, Victor. Do you understand? Victor. 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 Actually, let's be honest. The real reason that anyone who knows anything about film, even just a little bit, is here is to see if Guillermo del Toro can deliver the ultimate gothic, dark, fantastic spectacle of his entire career, because that's what his narrative is reaching for. He's earned such grand expectation, in my eyes at least, due to what is already achieved with Pan's Labyrinth, of course, and my favourite film of his, The Devil's Backbone, because I'm a bloody film hipster. Even his B tier stuff, no, it goes S tier, then A tier, S, then even his A tier stuff flicks my cinematic bean quite hard. Hellboy, Shape of Water, Blade 2. If I'm judging Frankenstein on the visuals alone, just for a minute, I think it falls quite short of greatness, but it does have quite a few moments of awesomeness. The aforementioned stuff on the ice, climbing a gnarly spire in a lightning storm, the fiery angel thing, exploding gothic castles, and some of the framing around the lab with the weird hole in the floor. God, I love that hole in the floor. But after that opening scene, I felt like he was mostly playing it safe. There's no Hogarthian blocking of Barry Lyndon, no nouveau weird of Poor Things, no otherworldly pop of classic Tim Burton or Jean-Pierre Jeunet. Basically, not enough Guillermo del Toro. Frankenstein is a film full of great cinematic moments, but it lacked the special connective sinew. Maybe the burden of past adventures and glory is the real monster. Over the years, I've been quite loud and loose about my opinion when it comes to adaptations and how I like to distance the source material from another artistic vision. I find so-called reviewers who highlight differences, especially from a book to TV or film, as an isolated negative force, quite frankly lacking in reviewing skills and quite performative. They really need you to know that they've read a book. So although I think that this novel is as close to perfection as a book can be, I would be over the moon if somebody changed some of the elements and made a better version of this story. I have no obligation to Mary Shelley. I've never met the woman. She's been a rotting corpse for the last 174 years. And that puts me in a rather precarious, potentially hypocritical position, because I think all of the changes that were made from this to the film, some of them were very subtle, but I think they were all negative. In this case, a faithful adaptation would have been much better. Probably. The main culprit is making the monster, the creature, way too sympathetic. We feel sorry for it from conception all the way to the end of the film. In the book, I hate the sound of that, but in the book, the creature murders the innocent. It understands revenge, and it goes out of its way to calculate how to inflict emotional pain onto Victor. The whole point of the monster being so monstrous is that it's a reflection of the creator, of Victor. We still arrive at sympathy at the end of the book, but the path is so much more interesting and darker and richer. This version is more like King Kong with a little bit of the Elephant Man or the Incredible Hulk, and he did feel a little bit like a superhero, which was weird. I don't think it's necessarily vital to absolutely nail the theme of the modern Prometheus to make a great Frankenstein film. I'm just shocked and very surprised that somebody who is obviously very passionate about this story and wanted to add their voice to the canon sidestepped so much of the fodder in favour of so much surface level empathy. The over-reliance on compassion is also prevalent through the Elizabeth character, Mia Goth again. Did she fall in love with the monster? I don't have a problem with that in essence, but I think it was there to build towards and impact that wedding day scene, which I found rather lacking. In the book, she's Victor's new bride and she fears the creature, which triggers all sorts of mirrored abuse connotations, and the creature kills her in cold blood, setting up that final act perfectly. Why change those, in my opinion, perfect narratives in favour of something less impactful? Why not just film the source material and wrap it up in a red and black Del Toro blanket? Anyway, my final thoughts are, I feel like I've just picked on this film for about 10 minutes, which I have, which generally tends to happen when you review something. It's all a bit magnified. But I did actually quite enjoy the film. It's a good film, and it's way better than pretty much any other classic genre character adaptation. And it's made with some passion. Yeah, it's made with passion. I just can't help wondering what could have been, you know? To answer the rhetorical question on the thumbnail, is Netflix the real monster? Then no, it appears not. Maybe trying to create something new in the image of such perfection is the real monster. Because of the whole Prometheus thing. You got that right.